And welcome back, everybody, to yet another edition of NB8 right here on Wood TV Plus. Phil Pinarski here, joined once again, and as always, by AJ Evans. AJ, we had an awesome weekend of sports and basketball in particular. You know, we had the Super Bowl, but NBA basketball had some really great games as well, including some fun matchups with the Pistons. A pretty big game with a lot of aftermath on Monday night. We'll get to that in just a little bit as well. Also coming up on today's show, we'll be breaking down the rest of the trades from last week's trade deadline, just getting everybody caught up on some of the biggest moves and also how this impacts the Pistons going forward. Again, still top of the East, but some teams in the Eastern Conference that are below them made some pretty big moves as well. We'll get to all of that. To kick off our show, we'll be bringing you the latest from the Pistons so far. They had a busy week and have a game tonight ahead of the All-Star break, and then we will spend some time talking about the All-Star break as well, who we think might be winning the All-Star game, the three-point shootout, the dunk contest, all that fun stuff. But AJ, let's begin talking about this trade deadline because, again, we spent a little bit of time last week. The Pistons didn't make any extra moves. Let's kind of talk about that Pistons move first of all, trading Jaden Ivey to the Chicago Bulls in exchange for Kevin Huerter and Dario Saric. The Pistons also will be swapping first-round picks with the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves were a part of that trade as well. They sent Mike Conley Jr. To the Chicago Bulls as well, and the Timberwolves just get some cash considerations there. So focusing back on that, we've seen Kevin Huerter play 3 games already. Yeah. He only has 8 points total in those 3 games, but I think mostly kind of what we were saying last week was that he would be a great guy to kind of space that offense and at least keep teams kind of consistent with what they have to do with Duncan Robinson in that starting lineup. How have you liked Kevin Huerter so far, kind of filling in that role?
I've liked what he's done. I think there was a lot of noise about his production and his shooting percentages being down when he got here, but I'm not too worried about that. Kevin Huerter is a guy who has been shooting the ball well his whole life. He's in the NBA in large part because of his ability to shoot the ball, so I'm not too concerned with it. I think shots will inevitably fall. He hasn't scored the ball too much since he has been here, but I like what he's done so far. I know we're going to touch on a little bit more, but I really liked how the team's spacing overall was in Charlotte last night, and I like the role that he had within that. So overall, I think he's fitting just fine, and I'm not too worried. But I thought this was a solid move when it happened. I'm still optimistic about it, and I think Kevin Huerter is going to have a pretty big role on this team and a sizable impact come the postseason.
Right, absolutely. And, you know, I think it was kind of good. At least I felt pretty good with the Pistons not making any other crazy big deals. You know, I think we've seen it from teams sometimes that are off to this hot start. They maybe think, okay, my opportunity, my championship window is way smaller. And they are. They can be very small, but, you know, sometimes they overestimate or I guess underestimate how much opportunity they might have and just try to take a big swing for the fences and make a crazy trade. I like that they kind of were like, okay, what do we need? Well, we definitely need some three-point shooting. Kevin Huerter can provide that, and we want to give Jaden Ivey a chance to maybe flourish somewhere else because he doesn't really fit up with the timeline we've got. And a bunch of other guys, you know, Jaden Ivey been dealing with a lot of injuries, so again, kind of opening the opportunity for him over there. So again, really like that move. Like that they didn't make any other moves. There were a couple of other big-time trades though that we want to talk about. Obviously, spent a little bit of time last week talking about 2 of them. Just want to remind everybody what they were. The big one that really kind of kicked off the trade deadline news was the Cleveland Cavaliers, Chicago Bulls, yet again, they were super busy at the trade deadline. The Cavs, the Bulls, and the Sacramento Kings all involved. DeAndre Hunter went from the Cavaliers to the Sacramento Kings. Dario Saric, who is now a member of the Detroit Pistons, was actually part of this trade as well. He went from Sacramento to Chicago, and then Keon Ellis, Dennis Schroeder are both going to Cleveland. And Cleveland wasn't stopping there because we also learned that they later made a pretty big trade as well, and that was to get James Harden from the Los Angeles Clippers, and Cavaliers had to give up Darius Garland, their all-star point guard, to make that trade happen. They also threw in a future second-round pick as well. I want to spend some time talking about this one because this was a super big trade when it happened. And again, focusing a little bit on the Cavaliers, a team in the East that could be competing with the Pistons later on, especially as we get closer and closer to the postseason. How do you like this new look Cleveland Cavaliers team with James Harden, no Darius Garland, no DeAndre Hunter, but again, Dennis Schroeder, who Pistons fans know pretty well from last year, and also Keon Ellis.
Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see how Cleveland shakes up throughout the rest of this year, and especially when they get to the playoffs. We just talked a little bit about that window and teams acting on what they believe is their window and how much time they think they have. To me, this move reads as Cleveland putting all of its chips in the middle of the table. I think they feel like this is their time and this is their window, and they're trying to exercise it as quickly as they can. I don't really think there'd be any other reason to trade for Harden at this point.
Right.
I'm not too long term. I'm not too sure about this move, to be completely honest with you, Phil. And contractually, I don't think they are either. I mean, James Harden has a player option after this season. Donovan Mitchell has one after the following season. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with those in the upcoming 2 off seasons. But overall, I mean, I think it can work long term, but I do wonder, because Donovan Mitchell is a really ball dominant, efficient scorer, somebody who takes a lot of shots and gets a lot of them off on high volume. But James Harden is also the same way. He's a very dominant ball creator. He's a heliocentric type of star, and he's very unique in that regard. But it makes you wonder, how can those guys coexist in a backcourt, especially through the course of 7 games, a really intense 7-game series. And I always felt like Garland really complimented not only Donovan Mitchell, but the rest of the team so well.
Absolutely. Just
because of how selfless he was. He was a guy who could get 18, 19, 20 points a game without really taking away from anyone. He could get it off of free throws and open 3-pointers, couple of floaters here and there. And then he was also going to get 10 to 12 assists just off of distributing the ball so well. And I know he struggled to stay healthy, but I still really liked the long-term fit with the two of those guys. I'm not too sure if this really moves Cleveland's ceiling the way that I think maybe the Cavs think it will, but like I said about the Celtics trade with Vucevic, if they like it, I love it. So we'll see what happens. But overall, I'm very intrigued right now. I'm not necessarily pessimistic about it, but at the same time, I'm not entirely too certain what it does for them.
Right.
But having said that, this is a team that I thought could have made the finals off of the roster that they had before the deadline. I think Cleveland is still just as dangerous of a team as any other squad in the Eastern Conference. So I think their ceiling is still where it is, which is making the Eastern Conference Finals and possibly making a finals appearance off of that.
Yeah, no, I think the Cavs are, again, a top team in the East, and I think maybe they are kind of envisioning that, okay, this maybe is a year where we can take advantage of maybe a bunch of guys in those other top teams kind of being hurt. And, you know, right now, one of the team's honestly, the biggest competition for them in the East would be the Pistons, and I feel like we've seen it kind of, one of the big struggles with the Pistons is kind of defending that off guard, that perimeter defense has been kind of a struggle for them. We've seen guys go for, 35, 40 points, a couple of times this season. So I think maybe that was something that they had in mind. But I completely agree with you. I like Darius Garland a lot more in that fit with the team. And, I will say, especially after they made that move to get Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis from the Kings for DeAndre Hunter, another guy who I really liked for that Cavs team, my mind was like, okay, they are going to say, Darius Garland, get healthy. Once you're ready to go, you're going to take back that starting role. But Dennis Schroeder is a great fit as that backup fill-in point guard. So them bringing in James Harden, I think, kind of negated a little bit what I really liked about that trade was Dennis Schroeder getting a bunch of minutes. Again, James Harden, great player, great offensive player in particular. But like you said, how is that? There's only one ball. How do you really manage to get both those guys comfortable, get them both the shots that they want without taking away from other guys? I mean, we saw Jared Allen a couple of games ago go for 40, I think, just off pure efficiency. So, again, these are questions to really be asking, what is the future for the Cavaliers?
Yeah, for sure. And, I mean, I think Harden's track record does speak for itself, and I do think there's a world where they're able to find immense success with the two of these guys. I mean, people had the same... They had the same concerns when Chris Paul got to Houston.
Right.
And the two of those guys made it work, and they were a hamstring injury away from making a finals appearance. But at the same time, we've seen what it looks like with Russell Westbrook in Houston, and it wasn't the same story. So I am interested to see. I think James Harden is he's one of a kind. He's one of a kind. He's one of the most unique players the league has and will ever see. He is a phenomenal playmaker in his own right. He reads the floor, I think, similar to the ways Hall of Fame point guards read the floor. And I do think he is a top-notch, elite-level playmaker. But I do just worry about how ball dominant he is and how it'll affect spacing and just the long-term outcome of this team, especially with the supporting cast like we've talked about. I'm not too sure about this fit just yet, Phil.
I want to quickly get to another trade that involved an Eastern Conference team and another team that the Pistons could be seeing later this summer during the playoffs, and that is involving the Philadelphia 76ers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Jared McCain, who had a really good rookie year before getting hurt, and he's been dealing with some injuries as well this year, as kind of coming back from that. He's now going to OKC from Philadelphia in exchange for a first-round pick and a couple of second-round picks, I should say, as well. Who do you think kind of got the better deal out of this? Or I guess really not who got the better deal, but, where are the heads at for both these teams? You bring in a guy like Jared McCain who has shown flashes to a team that's already pretty stacked in OKC, and they didn't get rid of anybody to make that happen. But then also Philadelphia, I felt like Jared McCain was kind of part of their future, and they kind of just decided to say goodbye for a first-round pick, granted, in this upcoming draft. But again, is that pick even going to be that high up? I doubt it's going to be a lottery pick for them.
For sure. Yeah, it was an interesting move at the time, and I still think it is, especially with the context behind both sides. But I think for Philly, when you look at their roster right now, they're a little bit filled at the guard position. VJ Edgecombe has been a tremendous surprise, I think, for the organization. I think they were high on him, but I don't think anybody expected him to play this well this quickly.
Right.
Tyrese Maxey is obviously your franchise lead guard now. And Quentin Grimes has also been terrific this season at points. So he's on a 1-year deal, I believe, that'll be expiring. You will have the option of possibly re-signing him depending on what the market looks like for him. So I think maybe they just felt like it was time and they wanted to head in a different direction and get a first-round pick out of it. But for Oklahoma City, I mean, we've talked about it. The Thunder have a treasure chest worth of picks, and they have so many guys already. You get to bolster this rotation a little bit. You hope that McCain can get healthy. But to me, I would say the Thunder got the upper hand just because they already have so many picks to begin with.
Right.
And this is a low-risk, high-reward scenario for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, they have a ton of picks left over. Even after this move, they still have a ton of first-round picks over the next couple of years, and they're already one of the best teams in the NBA. So everybody else should be very, very worried if you weren't already by OKC. We mentioned that the Bulls were super busy at the deadline. They are involved in two of these next two trades I want to get to, and they involve a guy that you are a big fan of, and that is Ayo Dosunmu of the Bulls. He's now going to the Minnesota Timberwolves to help them out in exchange for Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and a couple, 4 second-round picks to be exact, all between 2026 and 2032. A guy that you really like in Dosunmu. I mean, just knowing that he's going to be playing for not a really good contender in Minnesota, and also playing alongside Ant, who we both picked to probably win MVP this year.
Yeah, I really like this move for Minnesota. The Timberwolves have had some ups and downs this year, but I think long-term, Phil, Minnesota has been searching for a lead guard that can truly fit alongside Anthony Edwards, and I think Dosunmu could be the answer to that. I know some people may view him as more of a two-guard still, but I think he has all of the capabilities to play point guard. This is a guy who thrived in the Big Ten playing at Illinois, who thrived playing really competitive high school basketball alongside other high major guards. So I think he's more than capable of coexisting alongside anyone, but I also think he matches and fits what they're trying to do. He's got a lot of length, he's got some sneaky athleticism, and he has a lot of skill, and his game has just continued to progress. So I was a really big fan of Dillingham. I really thought he could be the long-term solution, and I'm sure Minnesota was hopeful too, but obviously that hasn't worked out. So I would really like to see what Dosunmu does alongside Anthony Edwards. I think he defends really well, and I think he could just be the perfect complement to him because, like we talked about with the balance between Garland and Mitchell, you're going to need someone who can still score but who's comfortable getting away from the ball at times. You don't need somebody who's super ball dominant and somebody who's trying to command the offense and pound the ball into the ground because you have Anthony Edwards to do that. He's your scorer. So I think Dosunmu's capable of doing all the other things, and I think he really has all of the intangibles that Minnesota needs to get to that next level.
And involving another team that is competing with the Pistons right now atop the Eastern Conference is the Boston Celtics. They made a really big trade that we kind of broke on the show when we were recording last week, and that's Nikola Vucevic going to the Boston Celtics in exchange for Anthony Simons, and then again a couple of second-round pick swaps there as well. How do you like that move for Boston? We kind of had instant reactions when it was happening last week, but now that you've kind of sat on it for a little bit, I mean, what are sort of your thoughts on that move, and really how does that help Boston out big time in the future?
I still like it, Phil. I like it a lot. He's such a versatile offensive player, and like we've talked about both on and off air at this point, you always felt like his skill and his fit didn't match the timeline of whatever franchise he was at.
Right.
And it was just frustrating to see. He's a really talented offensive player. I think he's got a really good high basketball IQ, and I think he's really capable of making some excellent passes out of the post. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of role he has. Like I said, Boston always seems to put its bigs in unique spots, and they're so wing-oriented. They put such an emphasis on size and skill that those guys kind of fluctuate in spots all over the floor. But I think Vucevic is going to fit in really well with everything that they do, and I think this makes the Celtics a huge wild card in the Eastern Conference. I mean, because this is another guy you have to game plan for in an offense that is already really unique in its own right. And if they get Jason Tatum back,
right,
this could be a nightmare for most teams.
Yeah, could be a nightmare scenario for a lot of teams if they're able to pull that off. Again, another team in the East that was involved in a pretty big trade and a very interesting trade. I think a lot of people were kind of scratching their heads at this one when it happened, and that was between the Indiana Pacers and, again, the Los Angeles Clippers. I want to go over the details for this one. So the Clippers are receiving 2 first-round picks and a second-round pick, along with Isaiah Jackson and Benedict Mathurin. In exchange, they are sending to Indiana Kobe Brown and Ivica Zubac, who is a great center. But again, there were a lot of questions, especially regarding that one of those first-round picks that the Pacers are kind of giving up, because there is a chance that they could be losing a pretty nice pick and a really great draft class, all for a guy in Zubac who, while is very good, I mean, the Pacers are not doing anything this season. They are so far behind in the standings right now. They are in full rebuild mode. So, again, do you think making this move kind of early, maybe potentially risking a top pick like they have right now for a guy that will help them definitely next year? But, again, you got to wait till next year.
Yeah, the parameters around the deal, surrounding that pick particularly, are very concerning. I would not have done that.
Absolutely. I'm glad we can agree that we were both like, why did they do that?
I think that pick is super valuable. This is a loaded draft class.
Right.
I mean, we all talk about the top 3 guys in AJ DeBonsa, Darren Peterson, and Boozer, but I mean, you have to look at everybody else. Like there's a lot to like. So I would not have done that. But I mean, look, the Pacers are a renowned franchise, and they've done a really good job of building this thing back up. They've made some great hires. They've drafted really well. They've put together a very good team. So at the end of the day, I trust what they're doing ultimately, and I hope in hindsight I'm able to see what it is exactly they're trying to do. But as of right now, it is a little concerning, just because, like I said, that pick is so valuable. So valuable.
Right, definitely. All right, last trade we want to get to on the show today, just so we're all caught up. Obviously, there are a few other trades to get to, but with a big one that happened over the trade deadline has got to be the one involving the Dallas Mavericks, the Washington Wizards, and to an extent, the Charlotte Hornets a little bit too. Anthony Davis, who, again, was at the center of probably one of, if not the biggest trade deadline move of all time last year when he was shipped from the LA Lakers to go to Dallas in exchange for Luka Doncic. Again, that made airwaves everywhere forever, and it will continue to make airwaves forever as one of the craziest moments in NBA history, really. Anthony Davis is now a Washington Wizard, along with Jaden Hardy, D'Angelo Russell, and Dante Exum. They are all going from Dallas to Washington. And then the Dallas will receive Chris Middleton, A.J. Johnson, Tyus Jones, Marvin Bagley III, and they will also get 2 first-round picks and 3 future second-round picks. Charlotte will get Malachi Branham from the Wizards, as well as just kind of an additional part to this trade. There's a lot to talk about with this move, AJ. Not only is it sort of the end of the AD era in Dallas, but kind of sets Washington up in an interesting spot, and again, kind of just confirms that the trade to ship Luka Doncic to the Lakers was an all-time failure. I think is, again, an understatement, really.
Yeah, I think you have to categorize it as that at this point.
I think they turned Luka Doncic into what? Max Christie and 2 first-round picks? I mean, again, you think about what Luka Doncic can bring to a team, and again, just knowing that this is how it's ending, kind of unceremonially, and then Anthony Davis is going to be a Washington Wizard, and that's going to be interesting pairing him with Trae Young, their young core, and potentially another top pick in this upcoming draft.
Yeah, it is really interesting, especially considering just the timeline of how the events have played out.
Right.
Dallas is still in a much better position than many other franchises would be, considering that they got the first overall pick. So they have a future superstar whom they are building around, but it is still it's a travesty, I think, for Dallas Mavericks fans and for the organization, because they had an all-time great in their own backyard, and it really is sad, but I do think they'll be fine in the long run. I think Cooper Flagg's going to be terrific. He seems to like Dallas. I think Dallas has really embraced him. I think they're still devastated over Luka, but I think they understand they have something special, and so I think that's as good of a consolation prize as you could get. But having said that, the Washington deal is interesting because I think the Wizards are being really aggressive, and I think people around the league were surprised by it and sort of taken aback, but I understand it. I mean, we talked about Trae Young needing a fresh start. You got to surround him with some talent, and I think Anthony Davis, as much as he's injured, Phil, he is still as good of a big as there is when he's healthy and when he's effective and locked in. When
he's healthy, he's a top. He could be still, even to this day, a top 15, top 20 guy easily.
Yes, you can't deny it. He is as good as it gets down low, but he's got to be on the floor, and you need him on the floor. And so both of those guys, Trae Young and Davis, they have to get right, and they have to be ready to put themselves in a position to win, because I think this franchise is making it clear, hey, we're kind of relying on you two.
Right.
But the Wizards have just been toiling in mediocrity for so long now. Like, I really do think this is a good move for them, because even if it doesn't work out, at least you can say they tried. They made an effort to do so. And they still have a lot of young talent around them. I really like the year Alex Sarr is having. He's averaging 17.7 rebounds a game. So you have some building blocks in place, coupled with the fact, Phil, like we talked about off air, you're probably going to get a lottery pick this summer.
Right.
You're going to have some weapons and some guys on the floor that you can rely on that are going to at least make basketball far more entertaining than it's been in DC for a while. But will it translate to wins? That's yet to be decided. But I do think if this team is healthy, the Wizards can make the playoffs as soon as next year.
Yeah.
I really do think that. It's just a matter of everybody being healthy and everything coming together as quickly as it possibly can. But I like what Washington has done, and I can't be mad at the move. I'm not going to diminish them trading for Anthony Davis, because it's something at the end of the day, and they're trying to do the right thing, I feel like.
Yeah, and they got some additional players as well. I mean, again, they did have to give up some picks, but, you know, I like what I've seen out of Jaden Hardy in flashes. Dante Exum has kind of revitalized his career a little bit as kind of, you know, a good vet voice to have in the locker room a little bit. And D'Angelo Russell, I mean, we've seen him pop off all the time throughout his career. So, again, you know, some guys are, you know, on the back end of their prime probably, but, you know, again, I think what they were able to get in exchange for that, and again, it's nice to see a team that is in that rebuilding stage, again, take these swings to at least try and be as competitive as possible.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's what it's all about. Look, you got to take risks to get out of the course of a rebuild. Like, there isn't one clear-cut, structured way to get out of mediocrity, like after years. And if there was a simple formula, then every team would follow it, and there would never be any bottom feeders. But I think they're trying to do what they feel is best. And like we've talked about with other small market franchises, Phil, you either have to trade or draft well.
Right.
Those are your two options. You're not going to land a shark in free agency. I think the Wizards are well aware of that, and I think this was an opportunity to take a stab at success.
And hopefully in a few years, they might be, even as early as next year, they might be competing with the Detroit Pistons atop that Eastern Conference. And it kind of leads us now to talk a little bit about the Detroit Pistons. Let's talk about their week of games that we have not had, or we've not gotten the chance to talk about over the course of in between episodes. Let's start with a loss, actually, to those Washington Wizards that we were just talking about, 126 to 117. Real quick, AJ, I mean, that was a bizarre game. Pistons, you know, were down by 13 after that first quarter. Will Riley had a really great game in that one. He had 20 points off the bench for Washington. Are there any big worries, especially with this game kind of happening at home? I mean, with a team as, you know, as middling as the Wizards have been and as good as the Pistons have been. I mean, was it kind of just them due for a bad game, or what do you really make of that loss?
Probably. I don't think we've talked a lot about, you know, some collapses and some, you know, just just some late game miscues that the Pistons have had, but I don't think you or I have felt like they've had a really bad loss in a while. So if this is one, okay, you can chalk it up to that. I would categorize this as a bad loss. I think you would have to. I was really impressed with the game Sharif Cooper had, man.
Yeah.
18 points. It's been really cool to see his career progress. I know at one point he was out of the league, but he was a superstar at Auburn, and so that was cool to see, at least for the Wizards. But it was a bad loss. It's just one of those things. I think Detroit flushed it and moved on with it, which is what you have to do. Sometimes you're just out of character for a night.
Right. Now, and as we've said, the testament of a really great team is how you bounce back from these losses. And, with the New York Knicks, again, a top team coming into town, that was going to be their next game. How would they respond following a bad loss against Washington? Well, they kind of dominated in this one. They won by 28 against the New York Knicks, 118-90. Again, the testament of a great defense of a good team is holding teams under 100 points in today's NBA. So that was just a dominant defensive effort. Jalen Brunson, the star for the New York Knicks, he went 4 for 20 in that game and was, in my opinion, very much outplayed by Dennis Jenkins, who at the time was on a two-way contract, and we just learned a little bit ago that it was reported that he has now signed a 2-year contract with the Detroit Pistons and will now be a full-fledged member of the team. Could not have gone to a more deserving guy. I've joked about it on probably every episode that I had no idea who Dennis Jenkins was before the start of the season, and now he's become one of my favorite players in all of the NBA to watch. Just from just how hard he plays and how good of a run he's had this year. Totally well deserved for him to now be an official on an official contract with the Pistons.
Absolutely, and I think that game and that contract is the culmination of everything he's done up to this point. But he's a guy who was really experienced, spent some extra time in college, and was ready for his opportunity. And he's stayed ready, Phil. I mean, even when Cade was out for that short span in November, I believe, he played extensive minutes and thrived in those. And then he goes back to the bench. Some games he may rack up a DNP or two or barely play in some garbage time. But then he'll play 17 minutes and he's ready again. Like, he's just always been on. And that is... It's such a hard thing to do, Phil. I don't think it gets talked about enough. Guys are used to being in the rotation and having their minutes and understanding, all right, I'm going to check in the second quarter. All right, I get 15 minutes, and the bottom of the third quarter, I'll get to do essentially what I want and run the offense. But he's somebody, I think, who really has to take it game by game, and he really has to find his role within the course of every night. And he's thrived doing that, man. He's thrived under chaos. So it was really impressive to see once again. I can't say enough about the job he's done. I'm not sure where Detroit would be without him. I was a big fan of re-signing Dennis Schroeder in large part because of what Dennis Jenkins has been able to do. But this has been a bargain for the team from both a contractual standpoint and just on the floor. So I really loved what he's done, and I can't say anything negative about his performance this season.
Right, and I do think kudos also goes out to the front office of the Detroit Pistons to reward a guy who has done so much for this team already and kind of recognizing it early. I feel like there have been so many times where we've seen guys get signed maybe in the offseason after having a really good season, or maybe front offices are saying, well, you're still under contract with us. We kind of do have your rights. You can't go play anywhere else. So we're just going to keep you on this low-end deal. This is, again, giving him some much-needed compensation for what he's done, and also I know he's super appreciative and loves being in Detroit now, just because of what the front office kind of did for him.
Yeah, for sure, man. And I think the cool thing about the Pistons and just the city of Detroit, everyone loves to embrace the underdogs. Like, everybody obviously loves the superstars and the guys who score all the points and win all the awards and get all the contracts, but the guys who come in and play, the garbage minutes and the guys who really are just unafraid and who come in every night and bring it, like, the city of Detroit embraces those guys. And I feel like Dennis Jenkins is a fan favorite for that very reason.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, those were, again, they split those two games, and then came last night's game in Charlotte. So a lot to talk about with this one. First things first, though, Detroit was able to win that game 110-104 and snap Charlotte's 9-game winning streak, because the Hornets have been one of the hottest teams in all of the NBA recently. There were some extracurriculars involved in this game. Of course, we'll get get to that in just a little bit. Let's talk about the game, though, and kind of the result there. Like I said, Charlotte has been shooting the lights out of the ball, and they just have been, honestly, a really fun team to watch. If you've got NBA League Pass or you've been able to catch them, maybe this was the first time you've been able to see them this season. I mean, they are a fun team to watch, and a team that I feel like could be pretty difficult or, cause a lot of trouble for teams, especially if they're able to sneak into the playoffs this year. Again, just a really good win, just considering how hot this team was for Detroit.
It was a really good win for a variety of reasons, but I think, Phil, this was the kind of game that good teams win. When your back is against the wall, when adversity smacks you in the face, especially in the second half, the entire arena is against you, and you have to figure out a way to win. Right. You got to figure out a way to come out with a victory. And this is a really good Hornets team. It's a really good team. We've talked a lot about the route that the Pistons have taken to the top of the East over the last few seasons. This Pistons team is quite similar, especially when you just factor in their core from where they were, like we've talked about 25 months ago.
Right.
And this Hornets team is a team that I think many people around the league have written off and wrote off even before December had hit, but they've got a lot of young pieces that I think are coming together seamlessly, and I think Charlotte is going to be very dangerous sooner rather than later, and they're starting to put the rest of the league on notice. But having said that, I thought Detroit did a great job of just keeping his foot on the gas, not getting complacent, and that next man mentality, the next man up, it's been terrific to see. Paul Reed, I think, was the MVP of that game.
Right.
He stepped in and performed brilliantly.
And you know me, I love me some Paul Reed. So, again, it was great seeing that. Before we jump into, those extracurriculars and what everybody's been talking about with this game, let's quickly just talk about the upcoming game. The Pistons only have one game before the All-Star break. It's on Wednesday. They're taking on the Toronto Raptors. It's going to be taking place in Toronto. Yeah. This will actually be the first time that these two teams have played this season, which, again, is shocking considering they're both in the East. Raptors currently at 5th in those standings. What are you looking for in particular with this game? Again, a lot of guys, they've got two guys in particular that are going to be playing in the All-Star game, and Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham. And then guys, this is typically a game where teams are, especially teams as good as Detroit are, they maybe take their foot off the gas and say, we're going to give everybody kind of a longer break. So what are you really looking for against the Raptors coming up?
I mean, going off of that, Phil, I think I'm looking to see what Jenkins is able to do off the bench probably, or what he might even do in a start, depending on if Cade gets some rest, whatever the case may be. But I'm looking to see how they match up against these guys. The Raptors are a team that the Pistons could very well see in the postseason, and they have been, I think, one of the league's biggest surprises. I don't think anyone expected Toronto to be this good, especially this far into the season. I think some people dismissed their early season success as a bit of a fluke, but you got to give credit to where credit is due. Darko Rajakovic has done a phenomenal job coaching this group. I think Brandon Ingram has come in and been tremendous. He was named to his second All-Star game as of today. So this is a really good and intriguing Raptor squad. And obviously Scotty Barnes is still leading the way, doing what he does best. So I'm interested just to see how they match up against them. Like I said, they've got a lot of length and athleticism. They've got good size all over the floor. And they shoot the ball well, and they move the ball really well too. Rajakovic's offense is really unique. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I haven't seen too much of Toronto, and it's like we've talked about, it's kind of tough to see how they match up against them just because they haven't seen them this season.
Oh, right.
And this is a really different Raptors team from the one that many saw last year. So it should be a fun matchup for sure.
Yeah, no, I'm really excited about that one. And yeah, anytime that you're this far into the season and you haven't gotten the chance to play a team, especially in your own conference, these teams have found their identities to an extent right now so far this season. So again, it'll be interesting to see that. Also worth noting, just looking through the schedule right now, the Pistons still haven't played the Thunder either. So that's, again, another thing that...
and that's coming up.
Yeah, that is coming up. So we do have just a few more weeks before we get to that game, and that's going to be a huge game. I'm very excited about that one.
Oh, yeah.
All right, let's talk about what everybody wants to talk about, and that is what happened in Charlotte last night. Of course, teams, there's a lot of energy, obviously. The Pistons, top of the East right now, top dogs right now, still looking for a lot of respect to an extent. In the Hornets, I'll say this, especially in the national media recently, I feel like the Hornets have been talked about way more than Detroit has been, just because of how fun and, how much winning that they've been doing. But Detroit has been, just as is talented as well. So again, a lot of emotions were high going into that matchup. Things were getting a little testy throughout, but it really came to a head in the third quarter when Moussa Diabate, I should say, for the Charlotte Hornets, a guy that I really like. He's a big energy guy. He fouled Jalen Duren, and then the two had kind of come to words. They kind of bumped heads a little bit. Jalen Duren put his hand in Diabate's face and pushed him, and then really all hell broke loose after that. I mean, guys were flying all over the floor. Miles Bridges for the Hornets also kind of got in it with Jalen Duren, and then Beef Stew, Isaiah Stewart, the enforcer for the Pistons, had to get involved and kind of shut him down as well. Coaches, referees, other players, everybody seemed like it was on the floor. It did eventually de-escalate, but again, there were a couple of minutes there where everybody was kind of holding their breath, just thinking what was going to happen. There were fists obviously thrown. We have yet to see any full punishments handed down by the league as of yet, but we'll be sure to insert those into the episode if we find them out before the time it goes up. But again, just another really scary sight at first, but I think, with how good the coaching staffs are, and I'll give Charlotte's coaching staff a lot of credit as well in that they were able to stop that before it really got out of hand. 4 guys were obviously ejected from that game, and Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, Miles Bridges, and Moussa Diabate. But again, with that being said and how bad it maybe looked at first, I think cooler heads prevailed in the end of that.
Yeah, for sure. I think you mentioned a great point. The coaches did a really nice job of diffusing the situation on both ends of the floor. I didn't feel like they were trying to make things even more worse than what they had gotten to at that point.
Not trying to pass the blame or anything.
Yeah. They weren't pointing fingers or anything like that. I think all of those guys who got ejected will be suspended from multiple games. But I think on a deeper level, Phil, this is a sign of 2 teams really fighting for respect.
Yeah.
I think the Pistons still don't feel like they've gotten the credit and the praise that they rightfully have earned at this point in the year. But I think many people around the league still view them as a franchise that hasn't done anything as of late. And I don't know if that's a fair assessment, but the Pistons will have to prove that when the spring arrives. But I think Charlotte feels somewhat of the same. I mean, this is a franchise that's heard a lot of noise just about how bad it has been, how it's poorly run, and how players, their careers go there to die, and how if you're a young player, that's not where you want to end up. And they've done a phenomenal job of trying to turn this thing around. Things have really started clicking. But going off of the diffusing thing, Phil, I thought LaMelo Ball and Cade Cunningham did an excellent job of keeping both of their sides away. They both keep the peace. And both of those guys, I think, have done that multiple times this season. Cade has done a really nice job of, I feel like, keeping the peace, which is insane to me because I feel like Cade is a very patient player. He's somebody who gets tested quite a bit. I see guys try and jaw at him. I see guys try and foul him hard. And he's always, I feel like, just responded with grace and class. And I thought he and LaMelo did a really nice job of that last night. But yeah, this is a fun Hornets team. Yeah. We said they were fun before, but they really are fun. They're fun. They're feisty. They're willing to fight tooth and nail for every victory now. And I think they're playing a really inspired brand of basketball. Their head coach, Charles Lee, got ejected as well.
Exactly.
And he's a terrific young coach in his own right. And that crowd was also crazy, Phil. Like, that was like a Friday night crowd. And that was a Monday night in Charlotte. I couldn't believe it.
Post-Super Bowl, no less, when everybody's tired from the night before.
Yeah, it's crazy. But it was a really cool game. I think that was one of the best games of the season.
Oh,
that was
definitely
one of the best games of the season for the Pistons. I think at this point, I'd probably put it in the top 3. And yeah, unfortunately, the Pistons will have to find a way to survive without their 2 anchors in the post for probably multiple games. But they'll have to figure it out. And like I said, I think they're going to continue to because of examples of last night. Paul Reed did a phenomenal job. He stepped in and was ready to go and wasn't fazed at all. And he seemed like he was ready to get physical too. He obviously didn't do anything to get ejected, but he did a really good job of imposing his will and making sure that he wasn't going to be punked or messed with at all. So this is these are just two really good teams, man. Two good teams with chips on their shoulders, and they're young and ascending, and they're trying to assert themselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, the basketball purist in me is praying that these two teams meet in the playoffs. I think that would be such a great matchup. And that kind of leads me to this question a little bit. I mean, with Charlotte and how good they've been, I mean, do we maybe see a little bit of a rivalry kind of budding between these two teams? Two teams that for a long time have heard that they're not very good and are kind of on the come up a little bit. Detroit to a much greater extent for sure. But like I said, recently, this Hornets team, I would pick them to be one of the top 10 teams recently in just the past couple of weeks with just how well that they've been playing.
Man, I think if Charlotte gets into the playoffs, they're going to have a rivalry with anybody they face off against.
Right.
Because they're excited and they're young, and I'm sure they feel very disrespected, as they should. This is a really talented young group that many people, like we said, had written off before Christmas. So they have something to prove. And a team that has that mindset is, I think, the most dangerous.
Absolutely. All right. Well, again, that's the Pistons recap from this past week of games. Again, a lot to be excited about heading into the All-Star break. We'll have a recap of not only that game versus the Toronto Raptors on Wednesday in next week's episode, but we'll spend a lot of time talking about the All-Star weekend festivities because like we said, we've got two Detroit Pistons in there, and Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham. Interesting to see if maybe he does still get to play. I don't think you can suspend him from the All-Star game. I don't think you can. Yeah, no. He rightfully deserved that All-Star nod, so I think probably keep him in there. But again, fallout from this trade or from this fight during the Hornets and Pistons game, we'll be sure to bring you the latest on that as well. But while we still have some time, AJ, let's talk about All-Star Weekend because it's gonna be a pretty fun weekend. It always is. There's always something to check out. Whether I always have really high expectations. I know people are saying it's always difficult to get guys to try, and certain aspects to All-Star Saturday night, can be a little bit boring, but I always have the highest expectations that I might be blown away, and maybe that's my own fault when I do end up getting disappointed. But let's kind of go through some of the fun events that are going to be happening all weekend long and kind of maybe staking our claims on who we think might be winning. So especially on Saturday night when there's all those fun extra events going on. So let's start off by talking about the three-point contest. That's what's going to kick everything off on Saturday night. These are a look at the participants right now. We've got Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, Con Knippel of the Charlotte Hornets, which we just talked about, Damian Lillard, who has not played a game this season, but he will be taking part in it during his injury hiatus right now, Tyrese Maxey of the Philadelphia 76ers, Donovan Mitchell of the Cleveland Cavaliers, Jamal Murray of the Denver Nuggets, Bobby Portis of the Milwaukee Bucks getting in there, and the Norm Powell of the Miami Heat. Any of those guys jumping off the page to you that you think might be kind of the favorite going into Saturday?
Man, for starters, Phil, isn't it crazy that the three-point contest is like the premier event now?
That's the one that I'm excited to check out the most, honestly.
I feel like most people are, and it's a sign of the times. I felt like when we were growing up, it was kind of the last thing that people were concerned with. People, I knew a lot of people that loved the skills challenge and the dunk contest before, but no, having said that, I think Dame probably is the guy. Just just because he's done it before. And he's fearless, man. He always seems to rise to the occasion anytime he gets in that position. So I'm excited to see what he does. I know he's been hurt all season, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see what he does. And if not him, I'd say Book, because I think Book is another guy who just shoots the ball really well. There's always a difference between guys who are like volume shooters and streaky, and then ones who can really make the ball off the rack. Shooting off the rack is really hard, at least from what I've been told. It's not like, catching an NBA pass.
Pulling up for three or something like that.
Or dribbling. So I think either Lillard or Book will take it home.
Yeah, I mean, my heart wants Devin Booker to win. Obviously, he's a local kid, so it would be great to, see him kind of take home the trophy. But, I'm going to be honest. If I had to pick one guy to win, it would probably be Con Knippel, just because of how well he's been shooting the ball, and I feel like his game is more suited to those off the rack catch and shoot type of things. Devin Booker is one of the most pure scorers in the NBA, but I feel like he's got to work so hard for it. So he's used to that. He's not used to having all this wide open room to shoot three after three after three. So again, he's a guy, Con Knippel of the Charlotte Hornets, that I think might be the one to really look at with that one.
For sure. I once heard Kenny Smith, I think, say while he was talking about a three-point competition, some guys would probably shoot better if they were contested threes.
No, exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like Devin Booker would be kind of that way, too.
Oh, yeah.
One event that is making a return, and that is the Kia Shooting Stars competition. So, broadly speaking, there's going to be 4 teams made up of 3 guys, and they have to compete in a variety of different shooting contests and events of like that. So let's go over the teams real quick. We've got Team All-Star, and that is made up of Scotty Barnes of the Toronto Raptors, Chet Holmgren of the Oklahoma City Thunder, and Rip Hamilton of the Detroit Pistons fame, of course. He'll be back competing in All-Star Weekend. That's great to see. Then we've got Team Cameron. That is going to be Jalen Johnson of the Atlanta Hawks, Con Knippel, who I just mentioned, of the Charlotte Hornets, and then Corey Maggette, another NBA legend, will be part of that one. Team Harper, I love this, by the way. You got Dylan Harper, who's having a great season with the Spurs right now. Ron Harper Jr., who plays for the Boston Celtics. And then you've got Ron Harper, who won all those championships with the Bulls, of course. He's the father of them. He's going to be in that one. And then you've got Team Knicks, and that is Jalen Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, and then Allen Houston, another legend there. So, again, you're getting a mix of current guys, some legends as well. It should be a fun one. Is there a team in that maybe you're a little bit more excited to maybe root for than other one?
Yeah, I would say Team Knicks. I really like that group. Karl Anthony Towns is so unique, and he's such a versatile scorer. He's one of the most skilled big men ever. Jalen Brunson is a superstar, and people forget about how good Allen Houston was. He was a premier shooter in the league. I mean, he was a lot. I felt like kind of like how Ray Allen was, just a guy you could put him anywhere, off of ball screens, pin downs, wherever. He was going to knock down a three, however you wanted it.
Yeah, no, I also really like the Team All-Star. I mean, just seeing Rip Hamilton back, I love.
Yeah.
So, again, having him part of that. And, Chet Holmgren and Scotty Barnes, I like it. I like this team because, kind of got guys who can score at almost every level in that one.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, again, I think with a, event like that, that's probably best for them. And then we come to Saturday night, and that's going to be another really big event, and that is the AT&T Slam Dunk Contest. This year's participants include Carter Bryant of the San Antonio Spurs, Jackson Hayes of the LA Lakers, and 2 new additions, the Keshad Johnson of the Miami Heat, and then Jace Richardson of the Orlando Magic, also the former Michigan State Spartan. Again, is there a guy that you're really excited to see in this one? Kind of an interesting mix. You got 3 big guys, and then you got Jace Richardson, who could use a couple of inches. I think he wouldn't be the only person to say that. But again, a guy who is a super great dunker. Really flashy. He's got a ton of a hop in there, and I think there's going to be hopefully some good dunks this time around. Last year was a little slow. I remember people complaining a lot and kind of have been over years, but the dunk contest always gets a lot of eyes, always a big draw for All-Star Weekend. Let's hope for a better edition this time around.
Yeah, no, I have my eyes on Jace Richardson. I just want to see what he's able to do. He's obviously getting into this game a little late because he was a scratch for Jalen Duren. So, yeah, I'm interested to see what he does. I would not say I knew Jace for his, athleticism, but I know he can dunk and I know he's got some tricks up his sleeve, so I'm sure he'll have something cool for the fans. But I think the smaller guys always have a bit of an advantage in a slam dunk competition. Like, I think Shaq has said this before, but it's a struggle for big men just because people are not as, I think, easily impressed by it as they would be for somebody who's really small. And Jace is not, tiny by any means, but I think he'll have the upper hand for sure.
Yeah. Are you sad that Jalen Duren isn't going to be competing this time around?
Man, I did want to see because I wanted to see what he would have pulled off. And I know he probably would have brought Cade out. So that
right,
really
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah, we are kind of missing out on that. But maybe Jace will bring out some MSU legends. Maybe he'll bring out his dad. You never know. Yeah.
That would not surprise me. I think he might bring out his pops. That'd be really cool.
Now there's an idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. You probably already thought about that. I don't know. I'm being like, hey, I've got an idea. Hey, Jace, if you're listening, I've got an idea. Let's talk about the All-Star game as well, because, again, the rosters have finally been unveiled. And we did find out that another member of the Pistons will be part of the All-Star game. That's J.B. Bickerstaff. He's going to be coaching the U.S. Stars team. So let's take a look at that team. You've got Scotty Barnes, Cade Cunningham, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Johnson. Then you've got Devin Booker, Jalen Duren, Tarrant, Chet Holmgren, and Tyrese Maxey. All guys that we've kind of talked about already. USA Stripes team, that's the second team comprised of USA team players. That is going to be coached by Mitch Johnson. Also worth pointing out that our two picks for Coach of the Year this year are coaching in the All-Star game, so that goes pretty well for us. So let's take a look at the USA Stripes team now. You've got guys like Jaylen Brown, LeBron James, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, Kawhi Leonard, Norm Powell. You've got a couple of really big-name guys there. And then this World team, I really wanted to spend some time talking about that because this team is stacked. I think that they could take the whole thing. This might be one of the greatest teams ever comprised fully together. So you've got Giannis, you've got Luka, you've got Nikola Jokic, you've got Şengün of the Rockets, Alperen Şengün, you've got Karl Anthony Towns, Denny Avdija, who's having a great year. Shea was named to that team, but he's not going to be competing. He's got that injury right now. Jamal Murray, who's a first-time All-Star, is having a great season so far. Pascal Siakam, and then, of course, Victor Wembanyama to top it all off. That is a crazy lineup right there. Yeah,
that's insane. That All-Star, that lineup, I think.
I could not think of how many teams that have also been put together before. I mean, 92 Dream Team. I mean, the 2008 USA team.
Yeah, I mean,
2020 Olympic or 2024 was that 2024 Olympic team? I mean, you look at some of the best teams ever assembled for a game of basketball, and this might take the cake, honestly. You look at all the different MVPs, All-Stars, numbers all around it. I mean, I'd be scared if I was either of the two USA teams right now.
It's a beautiful thing, man. Basketball is such a global sport, and I think this is another indicator of that. These guys are representative of how far the game has come from every country, every continent across the world. It's beautiful to see. All of these guys are super talented in their own right, and I think that's the best team. That's the best
easily.
Team. So it's awesome to see, Phil. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Do you think the World team might have it in this one? Do you think that maybe one of the USA teams might come out on top?
I mean, I think they might.
I think, isn't it both the USA teams have to face off against the World team, and then I forgot how the layout actually is going to work this time because you only have those three teams. I think. Or is it the two USA teams face off and then they take on the World team? We should have done our research before we started this, I think. But, I think it's going to be an awesome time. And hopefully we are going to start seeing at least some more additional competition involved with these games.
For sure, yeah. Whatever team tries the hardest is going to win.
Above all else, yeah.
Yes, that's what this comes down to. Really, the All-Star game has been an effort-related game for forever now. So the team that tries the hardest, I think, that gets out to the quickest lead and is able to retain it and really takes the last few minutes seriously will probably come out on top. But it's got to be a source of pride for these guys. So I'm interested to see who takes it seriously, maybe who doesn't, and who's really trying when the lights come on and the clock starts to wind down. Because I think there are always a few guys that you can separate from the rest who are really excited to be out there and who really want to assert themselves.
Mm-hmm. Do you think JB's going to play Cade and Jalen a lot? Or, I feel like, you want to see your favorite players in the All-Star game get a lot of minutes. But then, if your coach is behind it, he may not want his guys playing too many minutes in the All-Star game, kind of save them for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll play them too much. He'll probably play them together a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like JB's pretty fair. I feel like he'll play them just as much as he does anybody else.
Yeah. Is there a guy you think is maybe the favorite to win All-Star Game MVP?
Ooh.
Because this is another interesting topic because it usually goes to a guard because they're the ones making all the passes. They're going to, whoever's bringing the ball up really, a point guard. I remember way back in the day inside the NBA with Charles Barkley, Shaquille O'Neal, all those guys, they did a really good, all-star draft of all time. They got to pick any all-star of all time. And Chuck infamously had the #1 overall pick, and instead of picking a guy like LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, he picked Allen Iverson, who I love Allen Iverson, but he said, and this is it's really true, he said that the All-Star game really is a point guard's game. And you want to, whoever is really the point guard is kind of dictating who's getting the ball all the time. They're racking up assists. They're calling their own numbers. So is there a guy that maybe, it doesn't have to be a point guard, but a guy you think might be the top of the MVP voting for this game?
I mean, to be completely honest, I think Cade has a really good shot.
Yeah.
I think he thrives probably, or will thrive in a game like this, where he'll get to distribute the ball amongst the league's best, and he'll obviously score too. He naturally just does that. So I think he's somebody who could put up a really hefty stat line and could possibly lead his team to a win. I like all three of these teams, but I do think Cade could ultimately be the MVP. He's the first guy that comes to mind, to be completely honest with you. Him or Luka. I think Luka probably could too, because Luka's going to have a hefty stat line as well. It's interesting that point you made about Iverson, because Iverson is or was the MVP of what many deem to be one of the greatest All-Star games of all time, that 0-1 game. And him and Stephon Marbury took over the end of that game. That was a really good one.
Yeah. And that's what I want to see. I want to see just that competitive edge. Even if it's going to take until like towards the end of the games for players to actually start to lock in, but I want them to fully lock in. I mean, I think if we could at least get, 4 or 5 minutes here and there where it's just real competitive basketball playoff, almost playoff atmosphere, I mean, that would just be the cherry on top of it all, really.
Yeah, like I always watch and see the highlights of that 0-1 game. But something that hit me probably a year ago was when the game was over, Iverson, Marbury, Vince Carter, they were all like jumping for joy. Like they were so happy that they won. They were so like prideful of it. And it's so cool to see, especially looking back on it in retrospect. But I would love to see that again. That's primetime television.
All right, well, real quick, we do have just a few minutes left in the show today. Let's kind of go over one of my favorites. It's not as probably talked about as maybe I think it should be, but that's a celebrity game. Let's go over some of the top players that are going to be taking part in that one. I wanted to get your kind of thoughts on who maybe might come out as MVP of the celebrity game. It's always a fun time to watch, but you've got kind of a mix of former players and celebrities. You've got Amon-Ra St. Brown, for example. He's going to be taking part on Team Giannis, which is really cool. He's going to be alongside Jeremy Lin, Keegan-Michael Key, Taco Fall, another guy, Glorilla from Memphis. Shout out Glorilla. She's going to be there. Taking a look at the other side, this is a team coached by Anthony Anderson. That's going to be Matt Ishbia. I believe that's how you say his name. He's the owner of the Suns and former Michigan State guy as well. Simu Liu is going to be there. DJ Mustard is going to be there. Jason Williams is going to be one of those former players taking over. And then Keenan Allen as well. So again, kind of a little mix of both. Any of those players kind of standing out to you that you're excited to see in the celebrity game?
Man, Amon-Ra for sure. Because he's one of the most competitive athletes on earth right now, I feel like. So he might goof off to begin with, but he's going to take it serious by the end of it. So, and I mean, he's a professional athlete too, so.
Always going to be. Now, always a fun part of All-Star. That's the one that kicks it off really on Friday night, and so that's one that I'm really excited about. So, again, it's going to be a great weekend of All-Star action. We'll be sure to be bringing you all of the latest, not just from these last couple of games in the NBA, but also All-Star weekend and looking ahead to the second half of the NBA season in next week's episode. But I want to thank everybody so much for tuning in to this latest edition of NB8. I'm Phil Pinarski, and for AJ Evans, we want to thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.